What's good, South Surrey and White Rock? We are here for the most recent statistics release from the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, specifically to South Surrey and White Rock. So we're going to talk about what's happening with condominiums. We're going to talk about what's happening with townhomes, and we're going to talk about what's happening with detached properties in the area. And I think at least one of these is actually going to really surprise you. You only get one chance to buy or sell your next home. Let's get it right. A couple things I want to cover before I jump into today's video. One of them is this new thing in the market that I want to talk about. It's almost like a drug that both buyers and sellers are taking right now. And I want to talk a little bit about that. You'll have to stay tuned to figure out what I'm talking about. And the next one is there's two videos coming out on this YouTube channel that I want you to keep an eye out for. And it's both for one for buyers and one for sellers. And really what they revolve around is where I think both parties, because they're competing parties, of course, where I think both are actually going to go very, very wrong, if not in the next couple months, certainly into 2026. I'm seeing so many people have completely backwards information, do things completely the wrong way. And both of these videos, whatever side of the fence you might be on, whether you're a home buyer or a home seller, is going to really give you some information to help empower you to ask better questions and make good decisions as the time progresses and gets a little nearer. So if you're someone that's kind of been sitting on the fence, thinking about maybe selling their home or thinking about jumping into the real estate market as maybe a first-time home buyer, you're definitely going to want to catch those. So those are going to be coming out on the channel very, very soon. So keep an eye out for them. All right, let's get into our statistics for South Surrey and White Rock. So to begin with, we're going to be talking about the benchmark price of properties. And what is the benchmark price of properties? Well, it's taking what we would consider a typical home, and I want you to think of it almost as inflation for houses. So it's not a specific house, it's not the average, it's not the median, but it's the benchmark. So it's almost like what the typical home is doing. And just I want you to think about inflation. Like I said, is it going up or is it going down, sort of thing. And this is something that's put together for the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board and other real estate boards across Canada, originating out of the University of British Columbia. And it's our best formula and our best way to really gauge what's going on with the housing market. So the first graph that I'm going to show you on the screen here, I want you to notice, this is a really stark thing I noticed when I looked at this particular graph, but obviously 2024 is off to the very right, and we're in 2025 obviously right now. But if you look at the blue line on the very right of this graph here, that is new listings. One of the higher that it's been in since this graph has been published. So this is starting in 1990. Look at the red line. The red line is sales, and I want you to notice the gap between the top of the blue line and where the red line is in terms of how many new listings there are versus how many sales are actually transacting. Now, if you go back through this graph, if you look for a time in history. For the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, which is kind of our general bigger area here. If you look for a time in history when the listings were as high or as we had as much on the market as we did at one point, that's back in 2008. And the only time that it actually matches where the sales are that far away from the amount of new listings as well is also back in 2008. So a fairly interesting comparison to think about, what was happening during the financial crisis is kind of similar to the market conditions that we're experiencing today, notably for much different reasons, but I found that quite interesting. So what's going on with prices? Well, this first graph here, the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board, which is like Whistler down to the Tri-Cities, Richmond's included in there, that sort of thing. This is a general line for what's happened with pricing in the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board. And of course, the blue line down below is the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. That's North Delta all the way out to Chilliwack, so to speak. Chilliwack's not actually literally included in that, but you can kind of see where the prices have been since the beginning of 2024. And interestingly enough, you look at the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board, they're really kind of almost flat for where they were back in the start of 2024. So, they've kind of gone up and moved around and that sort of thing. But, fast forward almost 2 years, getting close to 2 years, it hasn't been really that much of a change if you look over the last 2 years. Now, Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, little bit of a different story there. They kind of up were near the $1 million mark. And, this is all properties kind of thrown into a blender, but now they're down past the $9.5 million or $0.95 million mark. So that gives you a little bit of idea how both markets are actually performing. So let's talk about condominiums now. So condominiums specific to South Surrey and White Rock. The red line on here represents a balanced market condition. You can see we were kind of floating in that area for a little while, and month over month, that has dropped down to just about 12%. So 12% puts us into a buyer's market condition condition in that area. Now, interestingly enough, and ignore the thing that says May on there, that's just a screenshot error, but what you'll see here is the market actually ticked up in terms of benchmark price month over month, between July to August. So we're filming this in September, but the end of August is the best statistics that we have at the moment. So the market actually ticked up. Now, I often find that this graph I'm showing you, which shows you kind of what the benchmark prices are doing, does, for me anyways, I feel it trails the reality in the market. When we say that the market is in a balanced condition, you can see it was in a balanced condition in months prior. So this little kind of price bump that we're seeing here might be related to months prior. Now, I don't think the statisticians would agree with what I'm saying, but this is my experience in watching these graphs for many, many years and just kind of watching what's actually going on. But we did see a little bit of an uptick in the prices of condominiums. So month over month, they're up about $4,200, which is a little bit of a surprise. And year over year, they're down about $35,000. So the market is certainly advantage to the buyers right now. Now, anecdotally, and a lot of my colleagues are starting to talk about this too, we are starting to see a lot more movement in the entry level market, typically condominiums or anything that's kind of, lighter in price sort of thing. We're starting to see a lot of people come out more. We're starting to see a lot more transactions, generally speaking, than we once were. So it'll be interesting to watch that market as it continues to go, because I want you to think of the first time buyer market, or specifically more so maybe the condominium market, that it's the domino that knocks down other dominoes. When first time buyers start coming back to the market, and I'm not saying they're coming in droves necessarily, we'll have to wait for the fall market to see what actually happens, but those townhomes that are for sale, or those 2-bedroom condos that are for sale, they don't knock down other dominoes in the market until the first time buyer comes and picks one of those up. That allows that 2-bedroom condo buyer to maybe go buy a townhome. That townhome buyer maybe goes to buy a row home or a detached home, and so on and so on. So it allows for more movement in the market. So it'll be interesting to see if that is something that ends up happening into the fall market, because on the ground, it's starting to feel like that a little bit, at least anecdotally. Certainly, one of the reasons I think that might be the case is the affordability. If we go back to a year ago, condominiums generally are down about $35,000 in the area. So they've become much more affordable. And of course, we all know that mortgage rates have gone down as well since a year ago as well. So does that allow more people to get into the market? Certainly it does, right? We've talked lots on this channel about new construction being stalled. You're reading about it all in the newspapers. There's not a lot of new developments that are necessarily getting done right now, just because of various challenges in the marketplace. So it's going to be interesting to watch the new construction properties and the premiums that they may end up going for at some point in the future, just because not a lot is getting added to the inventory, and we're adding lots of people. We need houses, so something's got to give, right? I talked a little bit too about a new drug in the market, or something that's kind of going on. The market's not literally a drug. I will touch on that in a moment, but I'm going to be releasing a video, as I said, that I think something a lot of sellers are going to get wrong in 2026. It's really going to burn them. I'm going to do a complimentary video to that as well, about what I think a lot of buyers are going to get wrong in 2026. So again, you're going to want to make sure you subscribe and not miss those. Getting on to townhomes, again, the red line is the balanced market. So you can see we're just down at probably about 12% sales to active ratio, meaning about 1 out of 6 properties in South Surrey in terms of townhomes are actually transacting right now. And that has had an impact on pricing. So you can see where the pricing has gone generally since the spring of this year, where we had a peak of about 955, generally speaking. It's down to about 920,000. So month over month, we saw about a $7,000 change in the benchmark price of townhomes in the area. And year over year, you're just shy at $50,000. So there's been quite the change there as well. So naturally, as you would assume, this is an advantage to anybody looking to buy a home right now. They have an excellent opportunity to take advantage of not only all of the units that are available, days on market. You don't have to make a jump on a place necessarily right away. I would add that the best places do go first. They don't always sit around as long as you might think. The best places will always transact, but you've certainly got lots to choose from, and you got a good opportunity to negotiate right now. So if you have been sitting on the fence, maybe that makes it for an ideal situation for you. Maybe it doesn't. You'll have to make that decision for yourself. Prices have continued to descend, as I just showed you, and I don't think we're necessarily out of the woods on that yet. However, again, back to what I was saying about condominiums, if those first-time home buyers are continuing to snap up those condominium buyers might turn into townhome buyers. So we'll have to see what happens as the second busiest market of the year, the fall market, gets underway. And that kind of leads into the last one there, that keep an eye on the condo market. There's a little bit of a warning just to see what happens here. Here's the detached market. So the detached market has continuously been the most tricky in South Surrey and White Rock. Definitely the hardest one being impacted right now. And you can see right now it's about a 5% sales to active ratio. That means about 1 out of 20 homes that come to the market are transacting. Imagine being a home seller and you know that you're up against 20 other people and only one of them are going to transact each month. Like that is a very, very challenging market, and that's going to have a big impact on pricing. So, like all the other graphs I've shown you, they peaked in the spring and they've kind of been going down since then. So month over month, one of the biggest drops we've seen since we started doing these videos, about a $42,000 change month over month for the benchmark price of detached homes in South Surrey and White Rock. And year over year, you're at a whopping $171,000. So really, really big changes happening in that market right now. Clearly, that is an advantage to the buyers as well. Tons and tons of inventory to choose from. You don't have to jump on anything here. You should have the ability to negotiate a lot on these properties, and don't make sure you don't mix up a well-priced home versus trying to negotiate off it, because sometimes those sellers have done a lot of the heavy lifting to attract you in the first place. So again, doesn't mean you have to buy it. You put whatever price in you want. Just be cognizant that other buyers out there who may see value in that home may also offer on it, and it might simply be gone. Money is up there with oxygen. It's very, very important, but oftentimes when you're buying a home, there's characteristics of a home and things you need in a home, and there's ones that are just simply better than others. So try not to get too much into the dollar only on that. You want to think about the long-term longevity of your family or what you're looking for in a home specifically. Here's the drug I'm talking about. Okay, if you're a home seller watching this, hope is not a strategy. You can see on the screen here, I've written the word hopium. Wishing the market is going to get better will not make the market get better. If you are somebody who is serious about selling your home in this market, you have to be priced appropriately. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Waiting for the market to come back is certainly an option that everybody has an opportunity to, participate in. My question to you is, where is the piece of paper that has guaranteed you when you bought that home that the market would only go up? Where is the guarantee that where the prices were in 2022, that was normal? Pandemic level mortgage rates, pandemic buying, frenzy buying is what was happening in 2022. So this high watermark has been set, which is really hard mentally for a lot of sellers to kind of wrap their heads around, that their prices have softened. And where is the new normal? Well, we don't probably know quite yet, right? And I'm not saying it's going to go up. I'm not saying it's going to go down further. We simply don't know. But if you think that it will go back to those pre-pandemic levels, or pardon me, those pandemic levels, you might be waiting a very, very, very long time. Hope is not a strategy. So work with the data that you have available right now. And again, that video that we're going to be releasing for things that sellers are going to get wrong in 2026, there's going to be some more tips and tricks and stuff on there and things to consider. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Prices in this area are going to continue to remain challenged. If nothing changes and we are deep, deep, deep into a buyer's market for detached homes, it's going to be very difficult, or it's going to take some time, better said, for that to stop, for that to kind of come back and start swinging the other way. So prices are going to remain challenged for the next short while here anyways. And that means if you are looking at buying a home, go ahead and put your offers out there and go and see what you can get done, because there certainly should be some good pickups right now. I know, in fact, in South Surrey, I'm starting to see rancher properties, as an example, that are on nice, beautiful 7,200 square foot lots. Maybe they're about 16 to 1,800 square feet, down at the $1.2 million mark. And it's been a long, long time since you could buy a home in South Surrey for $1.2 million. That's like incredible. So anyways, very, very good opportunity to get in the market right now. The market drivers is the last thing I'm going to leave you with here. So we've got a big mortgage rate announcement coming up on September the 17th from the Bank of Canada. Now, that affects what is the variable rate, doesn't necessarily affect the fixed rate. So if you don't quite understand what I'm talking about, make sure you look up anything related to mortgages on our YouTube channel, and we'll kind of explain that in those videos. But nonetheless, there is a big rate announcement coming up, and a lot of people are predicting that we will get a rate cut. It's also said that the Federal Reserve, or the Fed in the US, will likely be doing a rate cut, and likely be doing a bigger rate cut than they have done in the past as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I believe both are being announced on the same day, so keep an eye out for that. Economic shifts, tariffs, trade deals, all this sort of stuff. Who knows what's gonna happen with that? But certainly that's something you want to pay attention to. Home buyers and markets like stock markets, real estate markets, they like certainty, and if we can, get some more certainty back into the market, that likely will change a lot of the fortunes of what's going on right now. There is a ton of demand out there. Don't fool yourself. There's a lot of people that still want to buy real estate. They're just kind of sitting and watching and waiting and seeing what's happening. So, seasonal trends, we are going into the second busiest market of the year, the fall market. There's a lot of people trying to get into their homes prior to Christmas. So we'll see what happens with that. And local policy changes, I think our government's probably done for right now, because they're seeing what's happening with the real estate market as well. And they've got a big chunk of money missing because there's not very many properties transacting, which means their property transfer tax revenues are way, way down. So they're probably gonna, let sleeping dogs lie for a little bit. We'll, prove me wrong, and I'll do a video on it if that's the case. But anyways, hope that makes sense. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do another one of these next month. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You do not want to miss out on those 2 videos that I'm going to have coming up. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of them. And certainly if you have any questions or you need any help with the local real estate market, feel free to reach out to me and my team, and we'll make sure you're in a very good spot to do whatever you want to do and make sure your plans are well taken care of. Thanks for watching.